that has a silver star and a purple heart and a bronze star, you know they've committed to the program. So without further ado, First Lieutenant Bill Pavone.
Thank you, Scott.
Where's the presentation?
Why don't you wait till I introduce it, then you get started.
I gotta find it. I don't even have it. Go ahead. You.
Okay, they'll find the slide presentation while I give you a brief introduction of myself. It's an honor to be presenting to you and give you a little snippet of what it was like in Vietnam in '69 and '70. Bill Stewart asked me to put a slideshow together, having visited my home and realized that I've taken hundreds and hundreds of slides when I was in Vietnam. I had a little 35mm camera, sent the film off to Hawaii. They developed it, sent it back to me. I took scraps of paper, wrote little notes about every slide, sent it to my wife. She put it in these air-quipped slide trays, and she kept it in chronological order for the entire year. So one of the things that Bill asked me to do is to put a presentation together for the Balboa Island Museum. He wanted a very short presentation because on March 29th, that was the Vietnam Veterans Day. So I put an 18-minute slide presentation, only has about 63 slides. So, and then he said, well, I want to make a presentation. Then he said, well, I want to make a presentation all day long. And then he said, well, can you make a movie out of it? So he sort of wrote me in, set the hook, and then got me to do this. Trust me, given my age, I didn't have the technology to do it. I had my son in Charleston and my grandson in Philadelphia helped me put this together the week of the 25th. And the week of the 25th in March started off with an event at 5:30 in the morning when my wife fell at home, broke her shoulder, broke her arm, broke her nose, and broke her knee. So that was my week while I was putting this slideshow together. So I discovered a few mistakes. For example, my son, my grandson who was 18, didn't know anything about the military, so I only put a portion of my medals up here, and they're not in the correct order. So I'm sure some of you will pick up on that, so I apologize. Now the other thing is I focused this presentation on the people that are visiting the museum, both veterans, spouses of veterans, and people that just came off the street that weren't familiar with the military. So you'll see a lot of things that are pretty naive from your perspective, but I had to address the audience that this was being presented to. So I didn't modify it from what was shown for the course of the day. And Bill Stewart has a count how many people, but it was viewed by a number of people. And I think some of the comments that I received, I think were worthwhile. Many of the spouses of veterans didn't understand what a veteran went through in Vietnam. So they appreciated, gee, this was a life starting from going in the military when I was 20 years old as a college senior. I was going to go in the Air Force, but it was a 5.5-year commitment, and I was already signed up for that. But then I said, gee, I want to spend a shorter period of time, so I had a choice with the PLC program with the Marine Corps or OCS with the Army. I chose the Army, and I ended up spending 14 years, so I guess I didn't take the short way around. But it's my privilege to present this to you, and I'll have questions afterwards. It's timed out about 18 minutes. I'm well under the 35-minute window that you're afforded the opportunity to speak to you, but I'll answer some questions pertaining to just a short snippet of my military career in Vietnam in '69 and '70. So if you would, Scott, first.
My draft number was 10, so I decided to enlist in the Army to go to Officers Kennedy School in the infantry. And after that, I was assigned to stateside for 6 months, then went down for 2 weeks to jungle warfare training. And then our OCS class met at Travis Air Force Base and flew to Vietnam. This is the plane that we flew from Travis Air Force Base. It stopped in Anchorage, Alaska, Yokota, Japan, and then at Da Nang in Vietnam about 20 hours later. This was our first welcome center in Vietnam in Da Nang. Everybody got off the plane, came to this detachment center, and then was reassigned to different divisions throughout Vietnam. This is the last we saw of each other, and we all went our separate ways in Vietnam. Finally came to the realization that we're in a combat zone, having seen the bunkers and the bunker lines surrounding Da Nang. and knew what I was in for the balance of the year. This was our first bunk billet that we stayed in. As you can see, there are bunkers in between each one of the buildings that if we had a rocket attack in the evening, we would leave our building and go into these shelters. This is another view of the bunkers in between the buildings. As you can see, as time went on, people kept on adding layers and layers of sandbags. I was assigned the 1st Infantry Division, and this was their welcome center and detachment where you were deployed to your units within the 1st Division. This is a 7-day training period that would orient you to the area that you're going to operate, the configuration of the 1st Division, the assignment of the troops that you're going to be commanding, and then being shipped out to the field. This is a view of the headquarters building. It was called Danger University because the call sign of the 1st Division is Danger. So the division commander was called Danger 6. And then each one of the units' names started with the letter D. This is a picture of myself in the 2nd day of the division in front of the 1st Division sign. Unfortunately, during my 2nd day at the 7-day training, the helicopter flew in and we were told that they needed a captain and 3 lieutenants because those officers were either killed or wounded, and we had to replace all the officers in one company. This is a shot from the helicopter going to an area called Nui Bao Dinh, the Black Virgin Mountain in Vietnam. And what had happened is the North Vietnamese held the top of the mountain, or held the middle of the mountain. We had a signal company on top, and we held the land all around it. But unfortunately, the unit we were replacing hit a sniper company, and they had a number of casualties, which we were the replacement units. This is a closer view of Nui Bao Dinh. You can see how the terrain around it was completely flat, except for this one mountain. It was almost if you poured a mound of sugar in the middle of a pool table. It was completely flat except for this one mountain. This was the unit that we were assigned to. We relied heavily on the non-commissioned officers and the people within the company because all 3 platoon leaders, all the 2nd lieutenants, didn't have a lot of mechanized infantry training, so we had to rely on them to teach us the tactics and strategies that they used in Vietnam. Our assignment after the Battle of Nui Bao Dinh was to protect the road that went from Saigon up to Cambodia. It was called Highway 13 or Thunder Road. It gained its name because most of the convoys that were shipping material up and down that road went as fast as they could to make it out of the dangerous situation that lay ahead of them. This was an indication of how quickly they came down. This was, even though it was, you see the dust, this was a rainy season, and there's 2 seasons in Vietnam, 6 months of rain and then 6 months of dry, hot, sticky weather. This was an artillery base just off Highway 13 in the lower part of the photo. We would come in during the evening to protect these artillery units, and you can see it has a perimeter, and then all vegetation around the artillery base has been removed to provide some protection. This is an aerial photo taken from the signal tower in the middle of this artillery base camp, and you can see our armored personnel carriers on the perimeter facing outward to protect the artillery unit there. Like I said, this was the rainy season, so this was the entrance to the artillery base, and you can see the fuel bladder on the right-hand side. So as we came in for our activities for the day, we would stop there, refuel our mechanized tracks, and then park them in an appropriate position, and so we'd have a full tank of fuel for the next morning. This was my armored personnel carrier. You can see on the left-hand side, there was a water bottle, and that's where we showered. And then on the right side was a place to stay in the evening. Those are ammunition boxes that have been filled with this dirt and it hardens like clay, so they had some protection in an area like this. So we would stay there for the evening and then go out either on patrols, road security, or ambushes. This is some of the creature comforts that we experienced. Another person getting ready for a shower, one shaving, the other just waiting for his turn to take a shower. This is a POW that we captured out in the field, and we were bringing him back for interrogation back to the base camp. This was our company commander's track, and it's also the medic track. So you can see the litters that they had against the side of the track. And if you notice those square cans right behind the armored personnel carrier were called personnel cans. So each individual had one of these boxes to keep all his personal items, a change of clothes or any writing material or snacks that he wanted to keep with him out in the field. Company commander coming back to the base camp, you notice he doesn't have a number of personnel on his armored personnel carrier, just a forward air controller and his radio operator. This is a later shot of bringing that prisoner of war into the base camp. You can see that we usually right on top, we carry all the ammunition down below. So almost everyone has a flak jacket or some sort of protection prior to dismounting if we get ambushed. So we ride on top until we get shot at, and then we move down onto the ground. This is our theater of operation. You can see Nunavut in the distance. So it was the area surrounding Nunavut again between Saigon and the Cambodia border. This is during an ambush. I took a quick photo, put the photo away before I started shooting back. But we'd go down the road, and then if we were attacked from one side or the other, we would spin our tracks and then start firing in the wood line and stay mounted on our track until we needed to get closer to the enemy. Another shot of, again, just going into an ambush situation. One of the responsibilities we had as second lieutenants is to also arrange for and control a lot of the airstrikes. And this was an airstrike on one of the wood lines next to the road that we called in either the Navy or the Air Force. As we get closer to the battle, you can see where the terrain has been clearly damaged. But then we started calling in airstrikes even closer to our position because we were closer to the enemy. We're flying now into Light K, which is a major installation along Highway 13, which is that dirt road in front of you. And it was one of the major base camps for the 1st Division. We would come in out of the field to get a hot meal and showers about once every 60 days. So you can see we unload everything from the armored personnel carrier. For the most part, we didn't wear shirts out in the field, only pants. So we had to go find some shirts out of our personnel cans and put shirts on, which was a regulation when you're in a base camp. Again, this is at the base camp. You can see all the concertina wire or barbed wire that we carry in the back of the track that we didn't have to put out every night. And again, we're just relaxing, putting on a clean shirt, waiting to take a shower, and getting a hot meal. Believe it or not, we would look forward to a meal from our cooks. This was breakfast. The 2 jugs on the right are hot coffee. There's bread underneath that cover, and then we had scrambled eggs. So these are the little things that we look forward to, not having any hot food for weeks on end. Okay, this is the chow line. You can see most of the people still have dirty pants and clean shirts as a requirement. The cooks that came out didn't even put any shirts on to serve the meals. This is a photo of myself. You can see those are pants that have been in the mud for about 90 days with my clean shirt. And also I was pleased to have a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. Another shot in the field where we're just ready to move out to go on a mission. This is one of the commander's tracks. You can always tell they have the 3 antennas where ours would only have 1 or 2. This is a shot of me sitting in the position that I would normally be in traveling through the jungle. This is a picture of my entire platoon, 4 tracks, and about 30 people. Again, another shot. You can see most of the people have stolen or borrowed seats from aircraft that have been shot down. The seats that you see in the 1st armored personnel carrier, the passenger seats in a helicopter, or from a helicopter. Okay, mine was a little bit different. I found a pilot's seat from a helicopter that's armor plated, and you notice the number of smoke grenades on the back of my seat. Those are used by the radio operator that sits behind me. They would identify our position by a different color of smoke, and then throw it as far as we could in the direction of the enemy with, again, another color. So when the forward air controllers would come down, they'd identify what color it is, and we'd explain where we wanted the ordnance to drop in relationship to the smoke grenades. Taking a break out in the field, the 2 individuals on the ground to the left are our scouts. They acted as interpreters, or they were able to pick up some signs of booby traps or mines on the side of the road. This is the inside of a track with all the dirt. They never really stayed pretty clean. Unlike stateside tracks that are immaculate, we would use them and never think about washing them or cleaning them. Again, another shot of the mountain yard, which is the indigenous people that we use for scouts and our platoon. Again, a break in the field. This is hobo coffee. We just take a number 10 can, put water in it, drop a cup full of coffee grounds in there, boil it up, and that was your coffee break for the afternoon. One of the individuals in the platoon was assigned as the platoon barber. Had no training, no experience, but he had a pair of clippers, so we all used him to cut our hair. This is our platoon stopping in the field. This is my track, and in spite of all the money spent by the U.S. Army for all the cleaning equipment for our weapons, the best thing was a tube of lubricant and a shaving brush that you see carried in the helmets. And that's how we kept our weapons clean so they wouldn't jam. As an aside, that field you're looking through is a field of marijuana, which was readily accessible, but fortunately the troops in the field didn't partake. This is coming back through the Michelin rubber plantation. You can see it's a dry season now. So again, it's just dust forever as you drove. So you look forward to the shower when you come back into the unit. Just stopping out in the field, this is the area in which we operated in. We came across a mine manufacturing facility underground, and you can see these are the what they call IEDs now for in Iraq or Afghanistan, but these are the mines that the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong used to use to mine the roadside. So we came across a manufacturing facility. Again, another photo of another set of mines that we found, and fortunately they weren't able to use on us. This is a shot coming into our base camp, which is in Daojiang, and you can see the road in the lower part of the window of the helicopter where the plows would plow the vegetation, in this case the rubber plantation, away from the roads to afford us a little bit more protection when we're traveling through the Michelin rubber plantation. A closer shot of the Michelin rubber plantation and the base camp for our unit, which is Daojiang in Vietnam. This is a shot taken of our base camp just prior to landing. When they created this base camp, they were smart enough to use part of the Michelin rubber plantation as part of our base camp. This is the part that they made sure was inside our camp. It's a above ground swimming pool built by the Michelin rubber plantation for the rubber plantation workers. So we were fortunate enough to have it land in our base camp and used by the military. This was a pleasant reprieve after being out in the jungle for about 60 days. This is the welcome we receive when we come in from the field. Again, our call sign was Daring, so you can see welcome home Daring, and their cold beers were handed out to everybody as we drove into the base camp. This is an example of one of the smoke grenades that we threw in the direction of the Red Cross workers who were handing out the beers to us. That's the name of my unit, which is Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, Mechanized of the 2nd Infantry of the 1st Infantry Division. A shot of the motor pool where they would repair the vehicles, we'd unload them, clean them, fix them, and then be ready to go back out into the field. You can see the cots that are set up in the forefront. Those are what we sleep on when they're in the base camp. This is the bridge outside Daojiang that goes over the Saigon River. There'll be another close-up shot that shows some of the protection that we had forward for this bridge, just in case they would try to blow it up. As you can see on the opposite side of the bank, the bunkers that are there to protect this bridge to make sure that it wouldn't be damaged. It's the main thoroughfare, Highway 13 that goes to Saigon. One of the few paved roads in Vietnam. You can see Nui Bao Dinh in the background. That was our focal point, and you always knew where you were by using your compass to figure out where Nui Bao Dinh was. My unit out in the field, this is at Christmas, and what's special about this is all the battalion got together for a Christmas dinner. So this is one company of armored personnel carriers, and you can see they form a circle, 2 concentric circles, and waiting to go in for a Christmas dinner. This is another unit lined up that's parked going for Christmas dinner. One of the pluses is between where these armored personnel carrier and the dining hall, they set up these what look like sprinkler systems that they would have on a lawn, filled with 500 gallons of hot water. So we just take our clothes off, take a shower, put our clothes back on, and go for Christmas dinner. This is the tent that they erected for us so we could all have a Christmas dinner out in the middle of the jungle. Here I am opening my Christmas present. Everybody got packages sent to them, and a lot of them were held over to make sure that they all got them on the Christmas day. We operated with helicopters a lot, so these are the 3 helicopters that we use the most. This is a Huey or Slick, one that we transport personnel. Another helicopter used out in the field with us, they call them Loach, light observation helicopters. They'd be part of a 100-killer team. They would fly real close to the ground and spot for the Cobra gunships, which is the next slide. So Cobra gunship, this is one of the best helicopters that we always welcome in the field because of the firepower that they have provided for us. If we need to be transported for any distance, we would normally go in C-130s, which is planes in front of us, and we would use that if we had to go outside of our
Over
area
just
of
a little
operation.
bit.
Her
neck is getting tired. Sorry.
Traveling in a helicopter.
In the room? No, not yet.
As is customary with combat units leaving their field of operation, they would leave flying the American flag, but cover the military flag and all the battle streamers and ribbons that they've earned since that unit has been in existence. In this case, the 1st Division was moving back to Fort Riley, Kansas, and this is a photo of the brigade commander's track leaving the field for the last time. Many of the smaller units that had already been brought out of the field held their own ceremony, encased the colors, and either the people were sent to other units within Vietnam or back to Fort Riley, Kansas with the 1st Division, depending how close they were to the end of their 1-year assignment in Vietnam. Thank you for viewing these slides. This is just a small sample of the number of slides that I've taken in Vietnam, but it was a privilege being able to share these with you.
Do we have any questions?
Sir? This one over here.
Sir, you see that Purple Heart. Where were you wounded and how did that happen?
Most of the time it's been shrapnel. I got 2 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, and a Silver Star. So you just listed them, but I had multiple ones. Usually what happens if you set up at night, they put this chain link fence around the tracks. So if you got attacked at night, normally the RPGs would hit that and then cause shrapnel and not so much damage to the track. So a lot of us unfortunately had it. I finally figured out after the 3rd one I got that my wife was tired of getting the telegrams. So when I went into the field hospital, I said I needed my records to go with me. So they took the records and they didn't process the Purple Heart. So my DD-214 didn't reflect it, but who cares? It's like she just didn't need another telegram either about what was happening to me, either with awards that were presented or getting wounded. So, but another funny story about trying to keep secrets. I went down in a bunker once, and I grabbed what I thought was a stretcher, and it ended up being a 13-foot king cobra. It was about this round. The unfortunate thing was I had my M16, so I unloaded the whole clip. So I hit him 20 times, I think. But I couldn't hear for about a month. And they took it back, and that's another couple of photos I have they didn't put in here. And they cut the head off and bleed the venom for anti-venom. But I didn't say anything in the letters that I sent to my wife. But somebody called her up and said, there's an article in the New York Times about Lieutenant Pavone who killed this king cobra. So I was like, I had to fess up. But the only mileage I got out of it is I told the people in my platoon that they travel in pairs. I said, so I didn't have to worry for about 2 months of those people staying awake on point or in listening posts or walking down the trail. Their just eyes were wide open for about 2 months looking for the mate of the one that I killed. So I got some benefit out of it, if nothing else. But one of the other things I did was I exchanged videos or audio tapes with my wife. Unfortunately, she kept all the audio tapes and any letter, and what I used to write down is how many days you have left. And that used to be one of the topics that I always talked about, was the fact that you had 365 days. I went in there a year ago, or 50 years ago next month, the 12th of June, came back the 13th of June. So you always write down how many days left you have on the envelope, so she can put them in order. So she kept them all in chronological order. But I haven't figured out how to take those little reels and make a tape out of it. But somebody's saying you ought to just put that together for the kids. Yes, sir.
Yes. I guess it's on. Can you hear me?
I can, but I don't know if anybody else can.
I was going to say, I was in the same. Oh, there it is. I was there at the same time 5 years earlier, 65, 66, with 228th Infantry. 2nd of the 2nd was one of the battalions that went to Lai-Kay to set up the base camp.
Okay.
What's remarkable to me is how little changed in 5 years.
Yeah.
You were going over the same areas we were going over in 1965, 66, and suffering the same kinds of problems. Highway 13 was Thunder Road then, and it did not change in the 5 years. Just curious, did you have a short timers calendar?
Oh yeah, I did. When I became a double-digit midget, I loved that. It was like, okay, I got 99 days or less, and that's the biggest problem I think now in Afghanistan and in Iraq is everybody had their individual war, and their individual war was 6 month, 9 month, or 1 year deployment. So the mindset was, all I want to do is get through this for a year, and instead of winning the war, let's say in World War II, if you win the war, you come home. And I think that's sort of a shortcoming, my personal perspective, the fact that, you know, like Desert Storm, you get in, you get out, you take care of business, and you come back and let the military handle it. But that wasn't the case in Vietnam. So as an aside, one of the things that I liked about the people in my platoon, some of them were from St. Louis and some from Chicago, but almost an even split. And most of them had the option of going to jail or going in the Army. So I caught the Army side of that. But they had a gang mentality, which was great because they all looked out for each other. They all covered each other's back. So it's one of the things I never had to tell them twice about cleaning their weapons, carrying an abundant supply of ammunition, or worry about staying awake when they're out in a listening post. So, you know, if nothing else, you sort of treated them a little bit differently than you can do now. There wasn't, political correctness wasn't in the vocabulary. You managed your people a little bit differently. You did things back then that you didn't do now, even from command perspective or even medical perspective. We did things over there that you'd be in jail for doing now. Giving tracheotomies with ballpoint pens and a razor blade, doing stuff like that. I mean, you just did stuff and take care of business. And they understood that my whole role was to make sure each one of them got back. And unfortunately, I had a day that I lost 15 people, and they're all on one plaque and on a wall, so which is tough. Yes, Bill.
I've heard that your vehicle is called an APC armored personnel carrier. I've also heard it was aluminum and not armored. What is that? Yeah,
it is aluminum. That's why you're almost as safe staying up on top as you were inside. If something hit inside and the thing started blowing up, then you got a track full of ammunition and hand grenades and all our ordnance that's inside C4. Everything is in there, so it usually safer up on top. I felt real safe. I had a pilot's seat. I had a real steel-plated door gunner's chest protector, but that only worked while I was up there. Once I got off, you're sort of on your own. You're stripped down to just your pants. So, but I always figured my number's up, my number's up. Now I'm going to offend a few people in here. So what got me through Vietnam is I just worried about I'm in God's hands, and what happens, happens. The only time I worried about two numbers is every time I got on a helicopter, I worried about the pilot's number. So unfortunately, I only got shot down once where I lost a tail rotor, but we landed in a rice paddy, which they're pretty smart doing it that way. So no one got injured on that one. So, but to give you a little story, yes, sir.
You and I did the same thing, contributing to the war's effort. But one thing that I keyed on that you said is your combat missions were 60 days?
We were 60 days out in the jungle, then we came back in. You came in for shots, you came in to have your weapons repaired and your tracks repaired. So you're out in the jungle for 60 days, then you came back in.
We went to the field with 7 APCs and 3 Sheridan tanks per platoon times 3 platoons. So we were out there with 30 vehicles.
Yeah.
And 10 to 20 days out, we were either so shot up or broke down, we'd be dragging half the company back to the motor pool.
Yeah, we sort of left them in place. A lot of and they also repaired, when we came in at night, the maintenance people were at some of the fire bases we were at, so they fixed what they needed to have fixed then. But we, other than throwing tracks and replacing road wheels, they're pretty, I'd say bulletproof, but from a mechanical perspective, they just kept on running. The APCs did. The question in the corner.
Do we have any more questions? All right.
How often were you doused with Agent Orange when you were in the field?
Yeah, a lot. I'm lucky not to be afflicted by that, but we would be out at night in ambush position, and there'd be heavy vegetation around us, and we would get soaked with Agent Orange. And the next morning you wake up and the vegetation looked like fall. I mean, it literally in 12 hours would kill everything. And you say to yourself, what we used to do is we used to find a B-52 crater and just jump in a crater to rinse ourselves off. And that's the only way you can protect ourselves. But yeah, that was a huge problem over there, and I feel for the people that have been affected by it. I'm fortunate that I wasn't, but that's an issue that still hasn't been, I think, properly addressed. That's why that $1 million man is something you should sign up for and get it tested.
That's one of the reasons I would suggest that anyone that served over there join the Million Veterans Program, because the data has shown a direct correlation between that and cancer.
Is there any other question? Thank you again. It's a privilege for me.
Bill had one quick question.
Yes, sir.
If you're willing to, the Silver Star ribbon, or did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that was one of those bad days in the office. Our platoon was doing roadside protection on Highway 13, and there's 30 of us, and we got attacked by a battalion. So the body count ended up to be like, that was the one that lost 15 people, but they lost nearly 300. So I felt fortunate. I had to call in airstrikes on parallel to the road. So the only way that a helicopter can come in to resupply ammunition or take out the wounded or the ones that people unfortunately were killed was to fly literally down the road on the deck. And I stood out in the middle of the road to stop them, like I was stopping traffic. Put the wounded people in that I treated into the helicopter, pulled out the ammunition, and then spread it out amongst the platoon. I did that a number of times.
Thank you very much
Thanks.
for the presentation.